Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management and staff of Guardian Radio.
Good morning, and welcome to the eye-opener of a pinch of salt with a little bit of vinegar and a great big pour of gin with a little bit of Cersei.
Why did you have to make it sound like that?
Like what?
So gross.
The pinch of vinegar is to make sure the cup's still clean, you know.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, I'm your host. I'm your host, John. Joining me in studio is Crystal. Should be joining us via Zoom. Should be our resident Bostonian, Tate Adderley. Tate, you still there?
Hey, I'm still there. What's up?
Tate, I look forward to the day where you return from whence you came. I'm poking fun at ice, but also at the fact that I look forward to buying you a beer when you eventually, at least for summer, because you may stay over there. Who knows? Whatever you decide to do is your decision, but just pop back for the summer so you can sweat with us.
Was it really his decision, though?
Well, yeah, at this point. Tina,
I will be back in the summer.
Okay, awesome. Yay.
So yeah, I'll be back for the summer. It's just that I have to sort something out that I've actually managed to sort out.
Good.
And so things will turn out well or not, and so now it's just really must have that I have to figure out.
Yeah, man. Don't just make sure that if you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have social media like that anymore.
Good.
And
yeah. Well, make sure all your T-shirts are not graphic tees, and you'll be A-okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the wonderful world.
That wasn't a joke.
No, that was actually very serious advice as to, the realities of Uncle Sam up north. But, I don't make the rules. Yeah. That's their country. They make their decisions. Go ahead, Tate.
There was a student at Tufts, I think, this week who got arrested.
Abducted.
Abducted.
Well, yeah.
They tried to pass it off as that happening to someone in China until I was like, wow, China really doing that again? I was like, nope, it happened in the States.
Yeah, and they got it on camera.
Yeah, apparently I figured that, well, one of my lecturers told me that she read an op-ed about what was happening in Gaza, and apparently that was like what set off the radar on her.
Yeah.
And the also interesting thing was that she was a Fulbrighter who was at Tufts. And so it looks like there are two things. They're zeroing in on Boston specifically because of it's a blue state. I mean, it's a blue city, but also Massachusetts is a blue state. And because Boston is a sanctuary city. And so, yeah, Boston is apparently on edge right now. So, but everything is okay on ground. So we'll see how this pans out. Yeah.
Well, you only should be worried when they arrest Bill Burr. That's when you should know things.
Oh, true. Yeah.
That dude, I like Bill Burr. But anyway, yes, Tate, I don't know if you've realized this week in the Bahamas, so this week in the world, man. It feels like we're back. We're back to that era of every time you turn on your TV, you go on social media, there is a story, some economic global turmoil at this point due to the impending threat of tariffs, which were supposed to begin the 2nd of April, if I'm not mistaken.
Liberation Day.
Yes, he's calling it Liberation Day. The Prime Minister of Canada at the moment, who just called for an election, stated that the long-standing relationship between the United States and Canada has now ended. The EU kind of, I want to say way put at the moment because, they decided to run behind Biden with some of his policies, and now they're not in the greatest economic positions to
Yeah.
resist the Trump administration, which, kind of makes their hand very, very strong, the Trump administration at the moment. So, we'll see how this plays out. I don't know what's going to happen. I know it's been causing quite a bit of stir in the Caribbean region.
For sure.
I don't know, Tate, if you saw the video, of Marco Rubio visiting Jamaica this week.
Oh yeah, it was pretty interesting. I don't know. I kind of felt, I don't want to say I felt good about it, but I mean, it could have been worse. And it seems like the relationship is okay on Jamaica's part, and particularly also Barbados. And I don't know what that means for the rest of the Caribbean, but from successive administration, it seems as though Jamaica has been like the actual Tony Blair of the Caribbean. Wink, wink.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
and so it seems like once I guess they get in the clear, I think everybody else is in the clear. I don't know. That's the impression that I get sometimes when it comes to Jamaica.
What I'm gathering is that the United States isn't very fond of the potential. What's a nice way of saying this? They don't want China to, get any more of a foothold in the region than they already have economically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to be quite frank, it's kind of too late.
Well,
if
we're
they were
about to
trying
get an ambassador from the U.S.
Yeah, we'll see if he actually gets approved. Though.
We'll see.
'Cause they promised us Douglas Manchester last time. Didn't happen.
I know, but he had some scandal or something.
Yes, he was alleged to have been,
Yeah.
as we say in the Bahamas, a big juicer. And
But then again, is this one any better?
you know what?
don't know.
I at this point, bro, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know, bro.
I don't know this.
I don't have anything against it.
Just
I
like
don't
a
know
sports
anything
person.
about him.
He's a sports person.
I do know he apparently used to be in NFL, so lots of concussions. But that may be a good thing, because we've had not ambassadors, charge d'affaires that just pretty much, like, as soon as the Chinese come into a whiff in the air, it's just like, China bad, stop doing business with them.
I mean,
it's like,
do you think that's going to change?
I don't know.
I think it's going to be the same. I think
To be
that's pretty
honest.
standard because, it's like an ongoing, I don't want to say debate, but it's just like, no, I'm the king of the sandcastle. And it's like, no, I am. No, I am. So it's like a tug of war between who gets like a lot of the, I guess, who wins the grand approval of the Bahamas.
I dare say we are living in an era where our great, or maybe just great grandparents got to see. And that is the moment, I don't know if it hasn't arrived just yet, but it's impending, where one superpower surpasses another. And everything feels exactly like, if you ever read any, there's several texts about this, right? There's one about how the United States supplanted the British Empire, which was like in the late 1800s, but became permanent, like by the end of 1918, 1916 is when it became permanent. And I think we are approaching that same moment again. And it's actually crazy that I'm living to see this happen in real time. All the signs and symptoms are there. I just hope this one doesn't erupt into conflict. But the Caribbean is one of those regions, unfortunately, that's on the front lines of this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And there's some
allocation.
there's some news that's specifically pertaining to Grand Bahama, which I guess we'll discuss in the we cut to the news update. That kind of blew my mind reading yesterday. Tate, everything that this administration, the Trump administration, is trying to do, there is active countermeasures being deployed against them. If it has to do anything with China, China is going to put up countermeasures to stop that from happening. And that goes both ways, because the United States does exactly the same thing. I actually think the United States does it more than China does it now. But anyway, we'll cut to the news in a second. Yeah, it's been a fantastic ish week, I have to say this one thing.
It's been a dramatic week.
Somebody called me for the first time in my entire life, Tate. Someone called me Rasta. And I had to stop and think about it. And I was like, I don't know how I feel. And then I thought about it. And I was like, you know what? The real Rastas that I've met in my life commit themselves to a life of, what's the word?
Subsistence?
Kind of, yeah. We call it in capitalism, poverty.
Just
But
if you call them in Canada.
no, I'm being serious. But at the same time, they believe in subsistence. They don't believe in participating in these various aspects of what they call
No Babylon system.
no Babylon system.
Well, I was called a daughter of Babylon before. I know. That was so off. Like, oh my gosh.
What?
And
Nice
you know
on
how,
it, baby.
yeah.
They basically call you a bad gal.
Yeah.
Them is a bad gal.
It was, you know, like how those guys like selling drinks and stuff on side of the road. And like,
So you
can,
get your
in a
peanut
car. Oh, gross.
Well, anyway, I just gotta say, I actually feel good about them saying that because it's like I'm not a Rasta, but at the same time, I don't know if they was meaning like I have a charitable spirit and I care about people, because a lot of Rastas that I've met who actually believe in that faith are very charitable people.
They're so down to earth, most
Yeah.
of them.
I actually have
Not the one
immense-
that I encountered.
I have
But yeah.
immense respect for those of the Rastafarian faith who are tried and true to it. They are some of the most decent people I've ever met in my life.
But they do get what do you call it? Accused of misogyny though. As the next thing.
I mean, Christianity, Islam, Judaism.
Everything.
I just want to say, you're pretty big on that here.
Yeah, but yeah, that's not.
But I hear you. There are criticisms.
Not
There are valid
positive.
criticisms of
Not
everybody.
positive,
But
yeah.
anyway, we'll cut to the news break right quick. Don't touch that dial. All right. Unfortunately, this week we do have a giant, I guess, forest blaze in Grand Bahama.
It's still burning.
It, to my understanding, is still smoldering. I've seen some
Okay.
pictures of it. Quite crazy. Minister, I'm just going to skip that part. We're going to talk about the value-added tax cuts that are supposed to be coming April 1st. I'm not participating in silly season right now. So, you know, if you're planning on going to the food store, I don't know if you should wait until April 1st, but there was supposed to be a cut from 10% to 5% of produce in the food stores April 1st. So you want to take advantage of that. Deal with that information as you will. The wildfire is absolutely just excoriating. There's this whole thing about, do they have enough resources to fight the fires and functioning fire trucks.
Fire trucks.
Which seems to
Wow.
be a consistent thing.
Who knew an island needed fire trucks?
It's like we die in the same disease over and over and over and over and over and over again. Anyway, the Prime Minister has also announced a push for small businesses like small convenience stores, like the corner shops, etc., across the country, for them to diversify suppliers to reduce costs on Bahamians. This is, like we spoke about earlier, this whole issue that we have of the erraticness of American tariffs and the uncertainty that brings within trade. The update I wanted to bring on the Hutchison Whampoa BlackRock deal, for those who aren't aware, there was a deal struck between Hutchison Whampoa, who owns 50%, to my understanding, of the port in Freeport, or a substantial portion of it, and as well as ports in Panama on both sides of the Panama Canal and across the United States and South America, struck a deal to sell its interests in those ports to BlackRock, an American company, something that Donald Trump has lauded. Unfortunately, the Chinese government has blackballed Hutchison Whampoa and said if they continue with this deal that they will lose all contracts with
Unfortunately.
Chinese, well, it is what it is, or Chinese companies in China, and it is seen as a betrayal. This Hutchison Whampoa, the family owner, Li Ka-shing, yesterday has announced that he will not be penning this deal on April 4th. In other words, there is a high probability that the ownership in Grand Bahama's port is not going to change right now. I don't know what is factually going to happen until the day come when the signature is supposed to touch the paper, and if it don't happen. But the Chinese government across state media is absolutely adamant that if Hutchison sells their interests in this in those ports that the Chinese government will do everything in its power to essentially destroy that company.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here we are.
Did you have to word it like that?
I mean, when I read it, I was like looking at, because they said basically, in essence, they would end all contracts. They pushed hard for all major corporations in China to end all business contracts and dealings with the Hutchison Whampoa Group or the CK
And
Hutchison.
they're probably very serious about that because I do remember what they did to the tech industry when it became too powerful. Basically, not necessarily destroyed it, but did a really good job at curtailing the power of the tech industry in China. And also look at what they did to like the real estate industry when it came to the fact that they were becoming too, what's the word here, risky. So they're very serious about that. And they will do everything in their power to basically, in a sense, stonewall Hutchison Whampoa from selling.
That's what they,
they
yes.
have.
Yes. It started earlier this week, and it seems on Friday, Hutchison Whampoa, the leader, Li Ka-shing, I hope I'm pronouncing that. Quite literally said that they will not be signing this deal with BlackRock. Now, there've been no response by the Trump administration, by BlackRock, or any trade representatives in the United States. Chinese officials have been mum about it, but if you go on any Chinese official news source and see the headlines in reference to this deal, it is not positive. It is absolutely excoriatingly negative towards Hutchison. So I do not know officially what's going to happen, but based on what the man's saying, what the Chinese government trying to get him to do, it's a not go so. We also have this situation of, I got to talk about it, the $1 million port fees supposed to be introduced for all Chinese-made ships and ships of Chinese origin, basically docking in port in American ports, which is supposed to literally skyrocket the cost of procurement and shipping and logistics for the entirety of the Caribbean as well as South America. What's a nice way of saying this? It is supposed to essentially increase the cost per container, so somewhere around $2,300 to $2,600. No, that's not the cost of the container. That's the increase in costs of the container, per container. And that'll trickle down to higher prices for groceries across the board in the Bahamas, electronics, car parts, cars. It's a major disruption. Caribbean countries across the region have been essentially trying to find ways to bring to the U.S.'s attention that you will, in fact, destroy Caribbean economies by doing this. I doubt that they care. But the truth of the matter is, if the intention is to push China out of this region, these policies are going to do everything to push China deeper into this region.
Yeah.
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the last thing is just looking at the conversation with Prime Minister this week, Andrew Holness, there is an understanding that this is going to destroy a lot of livelihoods in the Caribbean. Of course, Marco Rubio ain't the president, so he could say whatever, but at the end of the day, as we learned with J.D. Vance,
Exactly.
whatever big man say is what happening.
And so said, so done, so far.
Oh, I don't know.
So, I mean, like, so said, so done, so far.
Yeah.
So everything that he said he was going to do.
Well,
He's done it.
Jamaica is a key component to this. If you don't know, Jamaica has what's called JISCO. What's the Jamaica? It's basically their version of a giant port in Jamaica. They also have a free trade zone, kind of like a free port of sorts that Chinese company has ownership in. Chinese made this investment, I think, about 15 years ago. And so it's a gigantic container port that as soon as ships come out of the Panama Canal, they often dock right at Jamaica, and then from Jamaica, they disperse to the various Caribbean islands. Now, that's an excellent thing for us, as it does somewhat bring down costs for shipping. If you're shipping a car and you go to the Panama Canal, if you track the car, you will see that it will stop at Jamaica first and then disperse to whatever Caribbean island or island of the Bahamas that you go to. That's promising. However, the part that isn't promising, Tate, is this across the board tariff at U.S. ports. It's two options we have, which is either stop doing business on the volume that we're doing with the United States of America, because it's going to absolutely obliterate our middle class. What's left of that? If you're making 122,000 a year for a family of four in New Providence, congratulations to you. But for the absolute magnitude of Bahamians who basically making 30% of our population, I saw it, Blake.
Yeah. I think I saw, I don't know if it was this guy, I think he's apparently the CEO of Tropical Shipping. And basically, I think what he said I think it was a hearing from the U.S. Trade Representative out there, basically saying that if you do this, you will apparently lose out on, I think he said, a $92 billion market. And pretty much shifting all of that into the hands of, let's say, other countries in the region, in the Western Hemisphere, but also even China. And so I don't know if this is a tactic to bring us closer to them and to depend on them and to apparently bring back U.S. shipping. I don't know if that's a tactic as that. But what's kind of weird is the fact that if you strong arm somebody into something, or you try to strong arm somebody into something, how do you expect them to react in a manner that's kind of favorable to you? That's what's confusing me here. And the fact that if you're trying to bring back U.S. shipping, I just think doing it in a much more, what's the word now? A much more, not necessarily charitable way, but favorable way would kind of strengthen those relationships or strengthen the relationship that you have with the Caribbean. But I think this way, as you're alluding to, Dom, will probably rupture the relationship and mess up a lot of economies in the region. But then again, I think going back to Marco Rubio's comments this week, there may be a way for us to skirt this. And I think looking at, the deal, apparently in regards to the tariffs, maybe there may be something to come off in that sense, but I don't know. We'll see.
Listen, I've been seeing just the rhetoric from. All right, I'll say this. I'm confused in this sense that I can't gauge. Once upon a time, you could kind of look at social media. It wasn't a definite thing at all, but you could look at it and get a sense of what Americans felt about some of the things that are happening in the Caribbean. I can't gauge anything anymore. There are so many bots at this point on. There's even there's I ain't calling nobody name. There's a company that's vying for a gigantic investment in the Bahamas. I think it's the one in Family Islands. I'm not going to be specific at all here. They have paid, allegedly, for a ton of Bahamian bots across social media. And there's a group
I've seen them on Twitter.
They're on Facebook too. These new accounts, that it sounds generic as all can be.
George Smith, John Rowe.
Oh, yes, they have a database of Bahamian names. Someone's name was Peter Simonet.
Don't give nobody else no ideas, please. We don't need multiple of those.
We don't, but I'm just saying, so when you see people praising something and you look in the comment section and it's
no, the comment, I know. Listen, when you go in the comment section, you see everyone saying, "Oh, I love this." Smiley face, smiley face, smiley face, smiley face.
Bots.
Smiley face, laughing, heart. They're bots. Come on. It's so pathetic. I'm just when you don't see any actual comments, then you know that's bots. But I think with AI, it may get a little bit more sophisticated in the future. But it really sucks.
It's becoming basically as just a lot of slop.
But I remember last year there was a conversation about this. Facebook was talking about adding more bots to their over the years, adding more bots to their platform so that it could look like there's a lot of engagement. Now, if that happens, then
it already did happen.
Then
people,
started. I know, but that happened. It kind of dupes advertisers because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the numbers. Interactions that you have on your sites, and it's going to make honest people. And this is what a lot of these new policies are doing, especially in finance and in tech. A lot of these new policies are encouraging people to be dishonest. And it's you're rewarded for your level of dishonesty. The more dishonest you are, the more you're being rewarded for it, you know? And so a company coming up and just offering to put bots, you know what I mean? Like that sounds
No, but
so
yes,
ridiculous.
It's dystopian.
It sounds
and the problem
ridiculous.
becomes, like I just mentioned earlier, is you
You don't
can't
even know if somebody liked the product.
gauge.
So
You can't
I
gauge
Your
have-
product could be
Go ahead,
killing
Tate.
people. And you have
have a
smiley face, smiley
conversation.
face.
What happened, Tate?
What's very interesting about this particular administration and also what's happening in terms of social media and bots. There was this guy who wrote this book, I think, or he came up with the term. I don't know if you heard about it. It's called
Dead Internet Theory?
Hi- no
Oh.
hyper normalization, right? And the guy pretty much used the term in the context of the Soviet Union where people believe or couldn't believe that the Soviet Union was about to fall. But they felt as though that it was something that was eternal, something that was so great or so powerful that it could not fall. And I think that kind of seeing how we're on social media, but also how we can gauge the truth and how we can gauge how people feel about things, right? I think we're in a similar way in the Western world where
It was like propaganda.
social media, propaganda is so strong. Propaganda is so like powerful, where we are basically creating a reality that everything is normal, everything is okay, and that we're going into a golden age. But in fact, the economy, inequality, poverty,
Is
you're
at
sort of ignoring
all-time
those
high.
things, right?
Yeah.
And they're coming back to bite you in the butt. And so I don't know if this is like what we're seeing in the Western world, what the Soviet Union was experiencing in the 1990s or the 1980s rather, but it feels like that's somewhat where we think everything is normal and everything will like be okay, but really we're not seeing the extent to which things are really, really bad.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of people now too who so I don't know if empty vessels make the most noise in this context, but you have a lot of people out there who are influencers and like social media popular, and they are putting out this rhetoric, and there's a lot of support behind them, or it seems like it. But you, like I said, once again, you cannot really gauge if that's how people are thinking. And so again, normalizing a lot of things that people are a little bit on the fence about or not sure about is going to help to feed the masses, like they're into not feed but manipulate, right, the masses into thinking that, oh, everything is fine, or this is a good thing, but it's actually the very thing that is destroying them. Like the misery index is like very high right now. This is not the 80s, is not the 70s, 80s, this is not the golden age of anything. This is, I don't want to sound too like negative, but this we're on the brink right now of like a whole new era of just blatant misinformation. And I've been seeing like a lot of posts too on social media with people who say things like, like, oh, if you do this, you'll be successful. And then there's so much of these oh, look where I traveled to, and so it looks like everybody on social media, and it's not just people with an agenda or political backing, they're out there making it seem like everything is perfect, everything is fine, we are flourishing out here. But in truth, most of those people are scammers or, or like dishonest, and they are making a lot of money on social media for pretending like they have a lot of money. And so it's kind of like it's like getting the inverse effect, and then it's the opposite of what you're taught, because you're taught that if you're honest and you do the right thing and you work hard, you make money. When in reality, it's almost the opposite. So I'm not trying to sound nihilistic or like, like negative or anything, but it's we're definitely in a new era now.
I think actually, not even say I think, there's ample evidence to suggest that we've always kind of been there.
We have, but this is a different scale.
It is now to the point where the things that had nothing to do with influencing your opinions. Remember, once upon a time, it was state one radio, and then it became like TV, and then obviously it grew into the 24-hour news cycle, which is just nothing but just absolute slop. I don't know if you watch American news all the time, Jake. It's just
So biased. Like everybody, you know.
the fake news media start getting off. But what it's actually created now is, I don't know if you remember, Tate, do you recall, Chris, you should remember this too. I think it was the last election cycle, maybe the one before, maybe it was 2017. There was a podcast or radio show that on Fox News or the Fox network, that just randomly in the middle of whatever they were discussing at the time just brought up Fred Mitchell. I just started talking about Fred Mitchell's record and the PLP and why they need to worry about the deficit and their people and people hungry and blah, blah, blah. And then people just ate that up. And it just, I have no evidence to suggest that anybody paid for that to happen. It seems as though someone would have great interest in paying for that sort of service. But the same way that happened, that same effect has been duplicated and mass-produced across social media. And I find that social media is no longer a place, at least if you're trying to gauge international reaction to anything, where you could use to get any sense of anything anymore. It's all manufactured slop, AI garbage at this point. And it's happening here as well. Like I said, you find that just like with Disney, allegedly, when they had or when those people decided in Eleuthera that they would wear the Disney shirts and show off when the Prime Minister was visiting, and all the things when the media was there when the Disney deal was being questioned by various NGOs and entities from Eleuthera. That same thing is now propagated across this country. And every time there's a development, there's an active fight happening right now between two developers in Exuma. It's still happening right now. And one of them could potentially be behind all of these bots that are on Facebook, that are on Instagram, and that are on X. That just... And the part that I fear about this is that we're in an election cycle, obviously, and we may be seeing the same nonsense taking place within our election cycle.
Yes.
And tell me this is 2017 all over again. Please don't tell me this is 2017.
I don't know.
It's probably even worse.
So it's like reality. And you know the next thing too, what I find hilarious, all the behemoths that was basically like ready to suck the toes of the current president of the United States.
Oh my God.
I dead serious, man. They was just lotioning up. All the Jergens and Vaseline was coming out. And everybody wanted to lotion that man foot down. And then all of a sudden, Tate, when the tariffs started coming out, everybody bought clothes. We used to have people texting to this show talking about Daddy Trump.
We didn't get one text yet.
I know. Daddy Trump can do this. And y'all hating on Trump. Papa Trump can fix things. And now... that it's become obvious that it's going to hit your pocket.
You know, it's a very delicious dessert. It's called humble pie.
Boy, eating crow.
Whoa.
But the thing that it exposed, though, is we talked about last week about dependency with Aaron Green. I wasn't aware of just how dependent upon American funding for programs the entire Caribbean was. I didn't realize so many NGOs were basically almost 100% funded by these things. I didn't realize how many government programs, how many pieces of research produced, even within the University of the Bahamas over the years, has been a result of U.S. aid money to various organizations that funnel into this research at different institutions.
Education, and those are like two things that have been in the news that were hit really hard this time. And then as fires blaze across Los Angeles, the whole state basically of California, and I mean... No. I'm saying that while that was happening, there was like this whole climate change isn't real situation. And now we're seeing here that we have the same type situation with, so now I feel like with all of these issues with climate change, right, that we're looking at right now, we need to be prepared. So guess what? I think the government, if not this administration, the next one, y'all gonna have to invest in some fire trucks, guys. It's past that time. It's very hot here. We can't take the risk. We need to get the fire trucks.
You know what? I can say something that's controversial. How about right,
Whether
this-
it's a public private partnership
But
or however,
they keep
donated,
talking
whatever.
about how
Yeah,
expensive
trucks,
the
guys,
fire trucks are. They keep talking
and
about
to maintain and
I know.
everything. We get it.
How about controversial take? I know. How about we sign an MOU with through the Chinese government with a Chinese entity that makes fire trucks and get fire trucks in because they have a bunch of fire trucks in Grand Bahama, mind you, but he none of them running.
See, that's the thing.
So, and then the issue is parts, and this is the part that blew my mind. When the Los Angeles fires were happening, they also had a shortage of fire trucks. Of course, I mean, with fire that big, right, Tate, there's no way in hell you could just have enough fire trucks on standby. So various states drove in fire trucks to support. But something that got exposed in the middle of that was there was a lot of fire trucks that broke down during that the whole efforts to put out that blaze, the Los Angeles fires and the Palisades fires. That parts on fire trucks and that the company is making them were having supply issues, and that this isn't something limited to what we're experiencing. This is seeming to be like a supply chain crunch in the United States. I don't know what the reasoning for that is. We also see the reality that now the supply chain crunch is extra on with these these tariffs. So that's why I'm saying, like, how about we look elsewhere to purchase and procure these fire trucks? I don't know what the
There are
price
so
is.
many things that we have to look elsewhere for. We import like how much 90-something% of everything from the United States. So now we have to try looking at South America, the Caribbean, China, Europe for cheaper prices on these things so that we don't get crushed.
I think China would be glad.
Because Bahamians will get crushed
work
in
with
this
us.
process.
Yes.
Of what all of these high, high tariffs. I don't know if it's some type of political strategy. Maybe there will be a time, and I don't know, but I don't know what the strategy is, but maybe there'll be a time where they reduce some of these tariffs. And just like,
Crystal.
this is such a relief because you had it so bad for so long, and it's just like, oh, in 2028 we're reducing this. I'm just like, oh, what a relief! Everyone's happier now. You know what I mean?
No.
No, I'm saying, Don. I'm saying, sometimes people.
I get what your point is.
Yeah, so they make it so hard for you so that you could be grateful when they have a little bit of mercy after being tough on you, right? Like you ever had a mean teacher in school?
Yes.
Who used to be like so tough, and then she was like, okay, the next test is multiple choice, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I think it's that type of situation. Maybe
There's
it could be.
There's a great philosopher, Crystal and Ted, I want you all to look into. His name is the Cube of the Ice, otherwise known as Ice Cube. He had a
Oh my gosh, Don.
great song, Tatum. It's a philosophical wonder. It's called No Vaseline. It was a track written about Eazy-E, but that's not important. It applies very much relevant here. That track should be basically the government's theme to us about.
Because our government itself, so example, right, Exhibit A, our government itself, you had 10%, and now they're reducing it to 5%. So it's
on uncooked
produce,
foods,
yeah.
produce, yes.
So it's like relief. So it's like any sense of relief because it's very expensive here. What makes a certain some people grateful. So people be like, yes, finally, they're doing something for us. What
would be great? It would be great if the government actually. Oh, my keys dropped. It would be great if the government actually did something for us. It is balance the budget. I don't understand how within the first 6 months of this fiscal year, the government was at $300-something million deficit, where it's supposed to be a fraction of that, Tate. And It's like, I'm going to be quite frank and honest. I'll just say this. Too many government entities have not actually paid vendors who they acquire goods and services from within the government sector, have not paid these vendors since essentially June of last year. If you looked at the books in that report, there was like $100-something million of unpaid bills up until that 6-month mark within the fiscal year. That number has grown since then. I don't know if the government has actually bothered to pay any of those things. And if you recall, in 2017, we were in a situation where the administration or the previous administration had left tons of unpaid bills. And that became an issue where we had a gigantic budget deficit. And it's like, I can't do the math. The math just doesn't make any sense to me. How you consistently increase the budget and then the deficit outpaces that. And it's like, I have no confidence in their ability to do math. Period. Like, I genuinely starting to think that I believe now that the BGCSE results for mathematics in this country is reflective to every successful administration's ability to balance the budget. You can't do it. Numbers hard.
Yeah.
PLP and F and maths just don't wake up for this country. And it's not about me being a negative Nazi.
I wanted to say
Go
something
ahead.
here too. So I'm the next thing too, kind of going back to like the social media type thing. So with the youth of today, right? There are a lot of videos, post channels where they talk about how, you know, children, they say, like, they're so smart. They know so much about the world, because you have a lot of young people and they're recording like kids and stuff saying things like, well, you know, the economy is in this state and we need to make sure that we do this and this and this so that we could get our finances and all these things. So they're well aware and concerned about the economy. And I don't think that's necessarily a positive thing, because like the way I see it, just because you have more access to information than any other generation doesn't necessarily means that you're smarter.
Look at the government.
And you know that I am not. And yes, because technically a lot of them did. A lot of people who are sitting in positions of power today, they had access to a lot of information. They had access to education that a lot of people didn't have. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, like you're smarter than the average person. But I think youth, because all of these social ills are just in our face so much today, I feel like they're just rooted in reality in a way. And I don't know if that's a bad or a good thing, but a lot of people says the kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I don't know bad thing, because people are saying that it's also robbing them of their childhood. You know, they're instead of being concerned about playing games, you know, they're worrying about, you know, how they're going to live. And I think that's it's telling, right, of the social condition that people are in, a socioeconomic position that a lot of people, the average person, is in, because so many people are relating to these type of posts. But then the next thing is, because there's a lot of information out there, and I see so much, especially the health and wellness channels on social media, half of those people don't know what they're talking about. And then and some people, like, to the point where a lot of people are even being sued because they put misinformation out there that cause people to get like botched surgeries, cause people to get sick, cause people to say, oh, you know, we're not getting cancer treatment. We're just going to use this home remedy instead.
Raises a question.
And so
who do you trust?
People are believing it.
But who do you trust?
I think, no, my point is, I think there's equally as much foolishness out there as there is legitimacy, and there may be even more. The garbage may even have an edge online. So just because there's a lot of information out there and we're swamped with it all the time, we have to have some type of nuance and teach the next generation to not believe everything you see out there.
I don't disagree. Why I asked that question is, how are we supposed to decipher things when it's the government of the Bahamas that's saying some of these things?
Okay, I don't know. I don't know how to.
I know. Like, Tate, how do you balance that? If the government says that, yeah,
it's not just the government of the Bahamas; it's just international.
No, that's fine. But I talk about in our context.
Happens everywhere.
Who am I really supposed to believe when my own government telling me these things? I don't have I honestly don't have an answer for that. Tate, what do you?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that either.
What do you do?
I mean, I honestly I don't, because you can't say certain people is lie on air, because you know.
No, I didn't say that they lie. I say the government.
No, I'm saying that for myself.
Oh yeah.
I'm just going to say something. But yeah, I honestly do not know how to deal with that. I mean, like, I like to feel that the eye opener has been a trustworthy source for about roughly, I think. We try to be, right? And I think we have to, like, listen to people who, like, independent media, right? Some independent media companies, I think, can be trustworthy, right? I would say, honestly, and, you know, with a grain of salt, of course, trust the media. And although, like, you know, this government has done some things to essentially affect the media in certain ways when it first came into power, like we no longer have like National Review, right? I haven't seen one of those since 2023.
Damn.
And so I remember reading National Review, and I used to think that, oh, this is decent journalism, or this is decent work, and like asking questions and make people think critically, and actually putting certain members of parliament, the prime minister himself, to task. I kind of enjoyed reading those in some sense, right? But other than that, who else do we have? Shanique Miller? I don't know who else do we have that I can actually do that work to actually like and question the things that the government says.
Like,
there aren't much.
Correct. And it's and I'm not saying it's disturbing. It just literally, like, you tell me, for I don't know how many years now, I always look at the government deficit projections, and I don't believe them, but I read them, and when I see that the numbers seem to be low, whenever the deficit is under $200 million, I don't believe anything the government has to say. And it seems more often than not, they completely blow past that projection. But what's shocking me about our current predicament, and again, we're very bipartisan about this, if everybody can get the smoke, is how are you not even fully through a fiscal year, Tate? I'm still stuck on this. You're not even fully through a fiscal year.
And you like
the
budget?
More like 4x, 4 times almost what the deficit is supposed to be. And then you say, "Oh, we on target." I don't know what to say. And the part that no one seems to care about in this country is the fact that when you look at how much we spend on the deficit, the largest budget, singular budget item in the Bahamas is the deficit, not the deficit, sorry, is service and debt. And it's going to continue to grow. We just like the United States with the largest single budget item, not split up into various categories. Just one plain, this is what this thing is due, is the debt. The Americans would spend, I think, next fiscal year, $1 trillion. And it's going to grow after that. Just like ours is going to grow to almost $1 billion in the next couple of years of the budget. So 1/3 of our budget is basically just paying off debt. And then the government just increases that debt every single fiscal year by multiples of whatever they say the deficit's going to be. And I consistently I keep raising the point, but it just seems like it's just pointless at this point. And when people tell me that we should be a country, it's like, how? There's no evidence suggesting that things are changing. There's so much evidence in your face suggesting that things are remaining the same. And because of this current stir of this administration in the state, things are going to get harder.
Yeah.
I don't think
you have,
go ahead.
And you had the prime minister doing a diversification tour when you should have been doing this from your first term. And it's like we're always responding to things and we're never proactive when it comes to issues that we see in the Bahamas. And so the only thing I want to say is that in regards to your comments, Don, is that I know that this is probably an unsafe way to think, but especially in the Bahamas, I think it's a useful way to be skeptical about things. Whatever is up is actually down, or whatever's actually down is probably actually up. And so I would say believe the opposite, or try to believe the opposite, or try to understand why the opposite might actually be the case of what the prime minister may be saying, or what a particular government member of parliament might be saying.
You know what we should do? Because we should all get whistles.
Yeah.
You should get. Let's take this call.
Oh my goodness! Really?
Let's take this call. Good morning, call. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. This morning.
You know, if you just talk about the share of the budget. You know, 1/3 being
that
what it is, right? And then what about government salaries? And that goes up. That's just one of the things that constantly goes up in the Bahamas too.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, you also talk about VAT. You know, why do we allow both of these governments to tinker with VAT and making it believe like that's our savior? when VAT came, and it still is. Fixing government revenue. But and so they said the easiest thing was VAT. Rather than they was advised to do income tax, they said VAT was easier, right? And they both supported both governments, right? So and then we have an issue where these governments are selling all of our assets. These assets in the Bahamas, the government where the government got revenue from, and especially look at Betelco. That's why the FNM can't say anything about selling our assets because they started it, at least with hotels, Betelco, and then the PLP, they love it because they're doing it too. They're trying to do it better. You see, so my question is, when are we going to bring the taxes that the people who are doing well don't want us to do? Like the income tax, a progressive income tax, and what it is, the capital gains tax, the wealth tax, the tax on assets. You understand me? The people that own, that they sell in the economy too, they don't want to tax their assets.
Nope.
Or properly tax them. You understand me? They can't, if they say, if you tax them, they're going to leave. They can't take those physical assets. You understand me? So we got to stop playing this PLP and FNM game and deal with the game and play the game that protects the Bahamas, man. The PLP and FNM, who wins the election, it doesn't matter. What matters is whether we protect our interest, the people's interest, and they're not being protected.
Thank you very much, caller.
Yep.
I can say something controversial. Maybe I kind of want the Coalition Independents to win 1 or 2 seats. And I want it to be in areas that are strongholds for either of the major parties. I want it to be big upsets. Simply because I want the behaviors to change. But I don't think the behaviors are going to change, but I just want them to change. It's just something I'd like to see happen, that's all. Let's take another call. Good morning, call. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Dawn. Good morning, Tate. Good morning, Crystal. I hope you guys are doing well.
Yes.
Good morning.
Any thoughts?
Pardon me?
I say, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I have plenty of thoughts. I just hope I don't pop where these thoughts are so taught. But Tate, I don't know. I mean, Dawn, I don't know, or anyone of you. I don't know if you read an article in the Tribune, I think about last week or so, where this government is proposing to slash your national debt by about almost $1 billion,
Yes.
$366 million.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how. I mean, we have been running deficits from I guess time immemorial. I don't know when was the last time that we had a surplus of revenue, right? And but the government said that it's proposing to tap into the capital market, and so on and so forth. And what really struck me was the fact that they, they are proposing this up to the year 2028, as if they are going to be
Reelected.
of the day,
Yeah.
and even if it is successful to some degree, the problem we have is that when one administration comes in and starts something, when the next administration comes, it just stops, cancel, and review.
Yep.
And just like I look at this Donald Trump, and sorry, I don't know if I can say this on radio, right? I love Donald Trump, but I just don't like him. I don't like him.
Why? What do you mean by that?
No, I mean, I love him because the Bible says we ought to love everybody.
Oh, okay.
But I just don't like him. I don't like his politics. I don't like his antics. I don't like his arrogance. I don't think he's good for the world right now. And I don't know. He's just upsetting everything, and he just wants what he wants. He's a tyrant. He's just causing unnecessary suffering on his own people. We, as a country, as I and many others have proposed that we need to diversify our economy, and we have to use technology more, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And we too have to streamline the course of governance in this country. I think we spend so much money unnecessarily on things that are not really necessary per se. And so I don't mind. I mean, I like Donald and his Doge approach and whatnot, and trying to trim some of the fat and whatnot. But we can take a page out of his book in that regard in trying to reduce the cost of governance in this country and to put the Bahamas on a better financial footing. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, caller.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good one.
We got to cut for the 10 o'clock break. Your weekly dose of gin and Saracen.
Takes us up to the point to let us see how this thing really goes. Sweet and wash, never get discussed. The frog you jump, my mommy having fun to say. Wash your clothes, girl. Wash your clothes, girl. Wash your clothes, till your clothes all clean. Wash your clothes, girl. Wash your clothes, girl. Wash your clothes, till your clothes all clean. Catch the crab boy, catch the crab boy, crab boy. Catch the crab boy, catch the crab boy, catch the crab boy, crab boy.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas.
Here's a price list of some of the roofing material we carry at Pinda Enterprises. 5/8 pressure-treated roofing ply starting at $36.68. Gray Select Water Shield, $134.20 a roll. Felt, $15.80. Owens, Corning Duration Shingles, and CertainTeed Landmark Shingles, $56.56 a bundle. Gallon of roof cement, $33.47. All sizes treated dimensional lumber. And of course, we have all nails and all screws. We have 5/8 sheetrock, $28.76. Half-inch sheetrock, $22.18. All prices include VAT.
Girl, you see how Cora eye look funny, all black up yesterday?
But she say she bumped into a wall when she's running after the churn them.
Yeah, but last Saturday you see her arm was all black and blue, right?
What you saying? You think something wrong between her and Jack?
I ain't sure, but you know Jack is a jealous man. I hear him and Cora last Friday. I hear him say he hear Cora have eyes for Junior.
Now you know that ain't true. Cora is a good woman, does mind her business, take care of them churn, and go to church every Sunday. So what you think we should do?
I think we should report Jack, you know. Cora don't say nothing, but silence hides violence, and we don't want to line up in the cemetery.
Not me. I ain't getting in nobody business, then Jack come after me, and I land up next to Cora.
No, man, we could call a text Crime Stopper. And remember, we can even get some grocery money for our tip.
Remind me again, how does this work?
We can call them in Miami at 328-TIPS or 328-8477. Or when we in the island, call toll-free at 300-TIPS or 300-8477. And if you don't have no minutes, use the Crack Crime Bahamas app, and we could text them, and the messages get all mixed up before it leave your phone, so nobody can know what you saying.
So what we waiting on then? Let's go earn some grocery money.
My Solomon Smart Rewards is the ultimate way to save and earn rewards on all your grocery purchases. With Smart Rewards, you will enjoy exclusive discounts and offers redeemable for all your favorite products. Whether you're shopping in Nassau, Freeport, or Exuma, our loyalty program is designed to give you the best value and earn you rewards every time you shop. Sign up for My Solomon Smart Rewards today and start saving and earning big.
For fast, reliable, and impactful printing services, look no further. Let Print Life We stand by our quality products that is second to none. Our affordable pricing and friendly, efficient staff makes Printmasters the ultimate choice for all your printing needs. We can deliver any type of printing services, from banners to booklets to business cards. You name it, we can print it.
Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
Grab the phone and take out the phone. Say, Mama, come on, let me go. The spell you right down to the but it's not a bite. I'm so nice, well, you don't have to grab it right. It's not the nice thing.
Scull the boat and catch the crab. Welcome back to the Eye Opener, your weekly dose of gin and heresy. You know, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. I'm your host, Don. Joining me in studio is Crystal, and joining us via Zoom is Tate. We got to go through the weather right quick, but I want to read a text right before we do that. You can text us in at 422-4796. That's 422-GR96. You want to call us in? That's 323-6232. I got to say it the payment say it. Or 325-4316. This person is say...
Don, please, no. Read it properly.
It appears that the government should turn their attention from climate change and carbon credits issues to agriculture and kitchen table issues. It almost is like the life that you live is not represented anywhere, but the government tells you that this is the life you're living. But in all honesty, the concerns of
life for me.
Wow. Wow.
I don't know. That just came to mind. That
was commentary
divine.
on government.
No. I mean, like on us and them. We doing the same thing they do. Just on those, we don't have those positions and not in this.
Oh, one of them seem to be on the DL. But yeah, I gotta say, before we go into the weather, the pirate thing was succinct, Crystal. I discovered recently, within the last 2 weeks, that apparently the public disclosure declarations that prime ministers and everybody else and ministers and members of parliament are supposed to produce, there's a report that's produced, like an actual readable report that gets published, and we haven't actually published it since basically 2009.
That sounds about right.
And I was like, wow.
What a pity.
No faith in this place. Anyway, let's go right to the weather. It's going to be a beautiful Saturday, nice and cool. Chill after the hot burning week we had this week.
So today's weather forecast for Saturday, March 29th, 2025 is cloudy skies with a high around 80 degrees Fahrenheit and winds east at 15 to 25 miles per hour and a 3% chance of rain. Tonight, cloudy skies early, then partly cloudy after midnight with a low of 71 degrees Fahrenheit and winds east-southeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour, a 15% chance of rain. And that is your weather report for Saturday, March 29th, 2025.
And I just want to say this one thing. My heart goes out to all those Grand Bahamians who are suffering under the blaze, or have suffered under the blaze. And I say this because the fire is one thing, but the smoke inhalation is another thing, and that's a health concern. I guess wear masks if you can, if you're in Grand Bahama. Crystal?
Yeah, so today we have a special guest in studio with us, Jody Minnis. Hello. Hi, Jody. She's a Bahamian artist, and she has...
artiste?
Artiste. And she has an exhibition at the Turn Gallery at Island House, so please go and check it out. Welcome to the show, Jody. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we've seen a lot of your artwork in the past. You've been at National Art Gallery. Where else have you had your exhibitions in the past? Cab.
I've shown at Cab, at Central Bank. Literally, probably every gallery on this island at this point.
Awesome. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
So what's the name of your exhibition, and what is it all about?
So the exhibition is called To Scatter Seeds, and it's a group exhibition with two wonderful artists, Sydney Jasmine Colby and Kayshell Knowles. And we just wanted to approach these ideas of like diaspora, family, lineage, heritage, and so on and so forth through our practices. And that means Tiscata seeds. So, working with them has been pretty awesome. Both of their practices are like more mixed media, drawing, collage, and mine is like primarily like printmaking and collage. So it was a really great like marriage of practices.
And so in your, I think one of the signature things in your representations, I guess, in your work is a Bahama Mama.
Yeah.
So that is a very interesting. Whenever I see it, I'm just like, that's Jody. So tell us about why you chose the Bahama Mama for so much of your work. And there's this huge Bahama Mama centerpiece that's been used before.
Yeah.
Tell us all about that. And
yeah, for sure. It started, I think, in 2019. I was volunteering at the National Art Gallery at the time, and they were clearing out their annex, like their storage. And I found like it was like 100 of these like small Bahama Mama salt shakers, and I was like, I hope that they were not selling these, which they weren't.
It's a very controversial figure nowadays.
It is.
What does it represent? And I'm
Yeah, it is a. So we're thinking about like the Americana Uncle Tom, Aunt Jemima kind of like stereotype from the Southern America, well, the U.S. South, I should say.
Yeah.
And it's like this like very flat representation of like black women and black men where you're all black. The skin is all black, pitch black. The eyes are normally like
super white.
Super white. But the pupils are focused inward, so the eyes are almost like cocked for the crossed, you know?
To show a lack of intelligence.
Right. And then they're always represented in a way that's like a kitchen or a domestic household item. And here we have the salt shaker. So it'd be these like pepper and salt shakers on the table, and you would just like shake them, you know?
Yeah.
You need to add salt to your dish, which is wild. But
and I haven't seen them since I was a kid. Because when, I don't know if Dawn, you remember, if you went to a restaurant, a lot of times, like a Bahamian restaurant, and you were younger, they would have the salt and pepper shakers. They would have the Bahama Mama salt and pepper shakers.
That was before that.
You get
Much has changed.
Much has changed.
That you could use, that you just like put on your food. And now I don't see them at all anymore. I don't know if it's because of the fashion has died out a little bit, or if it's because of the controversy.
No, I think they still exist, but they are in different iterations, so you'd still find stuff like that in the straw market, but the skin wouldn't be like super black.
Yeah,
you know, but it'd still be like this little like mama figure or whatever,
with the tie
like,
on her head,
holding maracas or something.
Maracas.
Yeah, because we're all of the kind of like Caribbean countries, you know, so you just like take Bahamas off it, put Aruba on it.
Yep.
Switch it for Jamaica. Or
I've always hated that.
Yeah.
I still hate that. Yeah.
But no, go ahead. I wanted to really talk about like representation and the Bahamian identity and how it's depicted in art in general in the Bahamas.
So that leads me to say like the reason why that experience was so jarring was because my grandmother was on the cover of a book called Bahama Mama at the same time that I found the salt shakers.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I was thinking about kind of like the multiplicity of these like two words. Bahama Mama is a drink, you know, and then in popular like touristic spaces. I was in Tampa at the time, and I remember like some American man calling me a Bahama Mama. Because,
They do.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, this is such like a jarring experience and such a interesting thing for these two words to manifest in such like multiplicitous ways. And I've been like toying at that multiplicity for, I think, from over time.
My interpretation of the term Bahama Mama has always been along the lines of like Aunt Jemima.
Yeah.
And like, you felt the same way, right, Tate?
No, I have not actually.
Really?
This is a Grand Bahamian. This is a Grand Bahamian perspective. No, go ahead, Tate.
Go ahead. You know what my interpretation of Bahama Mama was? I've always thought it was a white woman on a beach, like on a ministry tourism ad.
Okay. So I think because another Bahama Mama is lighter skin, like mulatto type woman, like quote unquote mulatto, right? Type woman who has a sexy body, kind of like the Chiquita lady.
Yeah.
So that's another version of like what they would call like a Bahama Mama with like a tie around her waist.
I know exactly what
you know,
mean,
like the
little,
belly
white
and coconut bras or
yeah.
something, or like a tie bra.
What I think of every single time in my life a tourist has asked me, Do you guys ride dolphins to school and work?
They come from the same cannon. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally the same cannon.
So, or live in huts on the beach and eat
You
mango
guys,
smoothies.
like when Cardi B was like, you guys have cell phones?
Screaming.
You all have electricity?
Mango smoothies on the beach, man.
Oh, goodness.
All day.
So it comes along in that same vein. And I went to the opening of the exhibition, and one of the things that I guess in my mind I'd forgotten is that, which is a good thing, I dare say, is that people do see art exhibitions, especially grand openings of them, as these grand social events.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a gigantic social aspect to art in this country, and that it is a very tight knit, cliquey community.
This is Dawn's interpretation,
Clicky.
okay? The views and opinions.
Yes, this is true.
Those are
This
yes
is
on
my
their own.
opinion. I've met a lot of artists. I've done some work in the past with Antonius Roberts as well. And I got to get a preview into this universe. Done some work with NAGB as well. I got a preview into it. And to me, it's like there are specific things that I don't see oftentimes represented within art in the Bahamas. There's oftentimes these depictions of beautiful landscapes, tourism being the center focus, but the actual lives of the people that we see and live isn't often represented.
And that's the negative aspects and the positive aspects.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's and also just the truth, like who we are and how we talk and how we act. A lot of it is not. I remember this one Bahamian actor. He said he was auditioning for this, what do you call it? You know, when crime shows was like a big thing. He was auditioning for this role in this crime show, and he had a Bahamian accent. Your accent doesn't sound Bahamian enough. So he had to use a Jamaican accent so that he could, could be a Bahamian, you know what I mean, in a show, because he has to, you know, like fill that what people's imaginations of Bahamians are. They needed something that was a bit stronger, right? So
I think what's like toying in my mind right now is that I think that those representations happened in the past, because like I'm thinking of like a few works, but they wouldn't be the thing that you would see like in mass media, or the thing that's like promoted like, oh, come to the NAGB or come to Central Bank to see like this particular kind of work. And then I'm also remembering there was a time when censorship was like real, you know?
It was, okay.
Is I mean, but like even like I remember like there was
point,
I was think of this guy, his name is EJ. I can't remember his last name, but he entered the Central Bank of the Bahamas competition, and he painted a photo of I think it was Prime Minister Christie at the time, with his tie with like a Chinese flag on it and like a Pinocchio nose.
Oh yes, I remember.
And I thought that was such brilliant commentary, but it was censored. The work had to come down. It couldn't stay for the exhibition.
It was controversial.
It was controversial. There was a time where, there was a whole small kind of exhibition within a national exhibition of queer artists in the Bahamas, the LGBTQ community, and it had to be like behind curtains with like some like label or something before it. The institution did stand behind the work, but there had to be compromises made in order to show it. So I think that there has been like attempts to represent it. And then when it is represented, I also don't think that it's quite literal. So it's more like an abstract kind of conceptual vein. I think now you have people like K-Shell, who is like very purposely representing like young Bahamian men and like all of the like aesthetics of it, you know, with the big coin chains and the Clarks and so on, you know, and you could look at it like literally there was one of the works in the show where the guy is like holding his glasses with two hands, his shades. Yep. And I was like, wow, I'm pretty sure I could find a photo of my husband in the same pose. And I did.
Dawn, you was ever like that? You was ever fresh up like
we never had back then. Ray-Bans wasn't a thing. It was Oakleys.
Oakleys, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Oakleys, you didn't have the coin chain, but you had the little ram ring.
Yes.
You sometimes you have the gold teeth. You definitely have to have an earring in.
And that disgusting axe spray.
You know, surprisingly to me, because I saw in several of the art pieces, there was this depiction of the young Bahamian boy in high school, I presume.
Yeah.
Wearing a techno watch.
Yes.
Which seems to be one. And it's like, the universality of that, if that's even a
Yes.
word. Because in my time in high school,
Yeah,
it
but-
was exactly the same.
But you know,
not just Baguio.
but I don't see a lot of it, like I said, like in art that you see when you go into certain areas. So we talked a lot about tourism, which is something that that is a service that's like export, right? That basically, so it's labeled for a certain demographic, right?
export,
and then
yes.
it's not for us, right?
Yeah.
But the depictions when you go into a lot of hotels and very like high end places, you will see Bahamian boys not in uniform and in Ray-Bans and coin chains and Oakleys
But
with
they'll
the
be on
watch,
the
and
beach.
but they're gonna be wearing these cut up jeans, these
Yeah.
cut up pants, one undershirt, like a wife beater undershirt, and then like kicking some dirt up in the yard somewhere.
But I think that
but
goes-
it's not. It's like it, and I think that's a overrepresentation of something that
Used to be.
may have been
Yeah,
right, but
yeah.
it's not. It like you don't see a lot of like current. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I think
You know Honda's in the pictures.
no, I have two brains about this because I think, I have to give it up to the current, right? And Bahamar, for all that Bahamar is, under the creative direction of John Cox, they've been able to like do so much with this contemporary representation of Bahamian
correct.
artists, not just in their gallery, but all throughout the space. So you will see work by, John Cox and his team and, different artists like Melissa Alcina. I think they have some Delton Barrett works or whatever, all throughout the hotel. You know what I mean? And they have like this kind of work that you're talking about in very public spaces. And they've been doing this work because, when Sarkis started, his whole thing was he wanted 100% Bahamian artwork throughout the whole, like literally all properties. And this is just like something that started maybe a decade ago.
So you would say that we're getting there.
Yeah,
We're
and I
getting
think,
there.
but then it like took John comes from he was a independence baby. You know what I mean? So we're still like in this like post independence era of trying to like make these strides forward.
Yes.
So people like John, even like what Turn is doing. We're on the Island Houses property, and you saw the coin chains was on the Island Houses property. You know what I mean? So I think we're trying and we're moving in the right direction, but it has to then go east. You know what I mean? It has to like not just stay in like the Western bubble, but it has to like spill out more.
Yeah,
into-
but even so with the bubble. So I, when you're talking about like the censorship and stuff, it's so funny because the people who the art shows, they don't have a problem. Like we don't have a problem most of the time with seeing those type of depictions, do we? Like the more modern.
When you say we,
the modern things,
Who's we?
the LGBTQ.
but who's we? When you say we, who's we?
I think that is a lot of things that
But I
aren't,
think-
I wouldn't expect to see something hidden behind a curtain if I went to see an
Again, who's
exhibition.
we?
I just wouldn't go if it's something I'm not interested in.
But I think it's like the difference between like the two spaces that I spoke of, like Turn, the Current, they're commercial spaces, they're private owned spaces.
Yeah.
When you're talking about spaces like, and Central Bank revamped their whole program underneath Ulrich Voges. They're doing like really awesome work, but they're still like a private quasi-governmental
Because
institution.
you
and
expect
it's the same thing as the National Art Gallery.
So when you think about Bahamian art, a lot of times, like you in your mind, or Caribbean art in general, you expect, and I don't know how true it is with on the international scale, but a local artist told me before that, like the European taste has not really,
it hasn't shaken.
shaken to understand Caribbean art.
Yeah, for sure.
So that kind of like limits us in a way. And a lot of the people who come over here to see things, they want the more classical looking paintings, and that's probably why, or paintings, art, mixed media. So that probably drives that a little bit. But when you go in a hotel, you're going to see, or any, most hotels and spaces where you can stay right in touristy areas, you're going to see the poinciana trees,
The reproductions,
and
the
beaches,
Adimanthus
and the beaches on the
yeah.
wall. So that, and like those things are beautiful, but I feel like we need to get to the point where we're like showing, telling a story, not showing a picture. You know what I mean? So I think we have the ability, and I don't think it should be limited to what people expect to see, because we like to just have like everything ready for the expectation, right?
Yeah.
That's why we have like I don't want to talk too much, but the straw market situation, right, where it's okay for the made in China stuff because that's and they're selling it in every single place where the cruise ship is going to stop because they're curating the space for what is anticipated rather than showing them what like the truth. You know what I mean? It's a lot of censorship in that way as well.
Yeah, but I think I agree with you that yes, like in like the Margaritavilles of it all and so on, like they love that aesthetic because that's like the aesthetic that people like. We haven't like truly like deconstructed and to an extent it's gonna take a while for us to like deconstruct that like idea of what the Bahamas is and this expectation. And I believe that it's moving forward because you have like and this I'm thinking it's all in the past decade. Like the Island House is somewhere where they only have contemporary Bahamian artwork within the space. And we've seen that people come to the Island House and even to the current expecting to see contemporary artwork.
Yeah.
So you have like different like museums and professionals and so on and so forth like choose to stay at the Island House and Bahama because of their dedication to art and culture in this specific kind of way. However, these spaces are not incentivized to do that. You know what I mean? That's just something that they took on themselves to do because they're privately owned spaces. But I also think that sometimes we lack context, and this is no fault on anybody's for like why and Eddie Minnis painting was controversial at the time. You know what I mean? For him to paint like the interior landscape of the Bahamas, and that's not anything that you would like think of like purposefully, this Pontiana was actually controversial at the time. Or, seeing this man walk within, the Bain and Grandstown at the time was a direct subversion to people painting the water.
The beaches.
So how do you then move and say, okay, well, we've like had that one layer of like controversy and like retort.
And build on it.
What is the next level of retort and how do we keep ushering these like new conversations and new ways of seeing into these spaces? And I think it's too because contemporary artists are not incentivized on the like governmental level because we don't want to have, back to what you were saying, true conversations about what our identity is and how it is continuously in flux. Like what Bahamianness looked like or what our culture looked like 5 years ago is not what it is right now.
You're hitting on the point of we kind of have a situation where the truth is rare.
For sure.
And the few times you get a glimpse at it, it's like very short-lived. And it's like, okay, we can't show this. Pull it down. But for you, who's not having, you have a internal Bahamian gaze because you live here. The foreign gaze, this is my opinion now, you should care less what they have to say about virtually anything.
Yeah, and that was my
Simply
point.
because Americans don't change things for foreigners to come and visit America for their expectations.
Remember the art gallery we went to in Texas?
Yes.
Oh my God.
All over the place.
Oh my God.
Listen, they had a whole section in there about for the history of Texas and the Wild West.
Ooh.
It started off with like the Texas Rangers, a little bit of Civil War stuff, and then it just went straight genocide.
Yeah, and it was not depicted like conscientiously
No.
from the way I was viewing it, for sure. I don't know what the artists had in their mind, but to me, like reading the a bit more of context, but it seemed like there was like no remorse. You know what I mean? And it's just like, oh yeah, successfully won this. And then you have like the gun, the thing firing, and then the Native Americans falling off the horse, and a bunch of people just lay
Beautiful
dead on
pieces,
the ground.
but like the messaging of it is clear. And this is why I say like art should,
And they didn't censor it to make it seem
this is my
like
opinion.
sorry.
Sorry, it's purely my opinion.
Yeah.
I just think art should reflect the reality that this is an artist's choice,
But
but
it was-
I think it should reflect the reality that at least the internal audience of whatever space it is.
And it
can
was
relate to.
perspective as well.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't, a lot of times when I think, and I'm not judging artists or anything, but when we choose how we are going to curate a space for our tourists, and I'm talking architecture, I'm talking art, I'm talking design, all these things, we're thinking about, a lot of times we just see and be, I wonder what they want to see. And we're not really doing it from our perspective. we should be doing a lot of things, and that's the beautiful thing about places like I said, like with Cab and Turn and stuff, because a lot of it is from the Bahamian perspective, and the current those because they're going to see a carbon copy of, they're going to go into, all of these spaces where, the touristy areas, and they're going to see a carbon copy throughout the entire Caribbean, throughout their entire ship. Trip. How do we make ours more interesting and different? And we can still add those elements of like the cliche stuff. But how do we stand out? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can't just be John Canoe.
Let Jody
we could
create
do a
stuff.
little bit more.
We
could do it.
I have, my brain is going a mile a minute now. But what I think is also a really beautiful thing right now is that, for the past maybe 15 years, now we actually have artists that, live at home to make their work and are deeply grounded. So they're just observing this landscape. They're not in between.
Here in Paris.
Yeah, here in Paris, here in, the US and so on. So they're responding to this landscape in a different kind of way. So people like Keishel, people like Sydney, people like Kia, Poitier, Angelica Wallace-Whitfield, and so on, they're responding. So you would see, Kia just did a show at Cab with just Bahamian food. So just fried fish and fries, and I've never seen Bahamian food depicted in this kind of way on just an exhibition of that. And I was like, this is brilliant. So you have this new generation of Bahamian artists living in the Bahamas that is going to birth what you're asking for, this representation of air. But also then you have those LeVar Monroe, Anina Major, April Bay, and so on, who were in between both places, who took elements of Bahamian culture, specifically the traditional side of it, took it out of here and put it in a contemporary lens. So LeVar has fringing of newspaper in his work, and that may not overtly say Bahamas, but you and I look at that and you're like, oh, that's Shunkanu, And when Anina plats clay, you're like, oh, that's straw, and so on and so forth. So there's these very small waves of this happening, but like you said, I think that the merge that needs to happen is, more cross collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism, more cross collaboration with other governmental agencies to actually see what we are doing and platform it in a way that doesn't have to fit
lines of what people expect to see when they come to the Bahamas.
Right, because there's so much people that I went to an opening of Tavares Shawn's show in New York, I think a few years ago, and people were blown away by images of Samuel Butler. You know what I mean? They don't know who he is, but in New York it's there. And, there is that international crowd that loves his work that is deeply rooted within the Bahamas. The same thing for Jeffrey Marish, Janine Anthony, these Bahamians who are existing in the U.S. But if a representative of the Ministry of Tourism does not know that, hey, this work is viable within the same audiences that you want to bring here, then you would not make that cross connection and to see the viability of having the truth be told within our touristic spaces.
How can people get in contact with you? How can they get to see your artwork?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. It is my first and last name, Jody, Jodi, Minnis, Minnis. I have a website, which is just my first and last name as well, www.jodyminnis.com. My work is on view at Turn until May 17th. And that's where you can see it for now.
Yes, and Turn is at Island House.
It is on the Island House's property, yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know. What are they?
All the way west.
Yeah.
By Life at Key.
Yeah, very, very west. Very
west.
Yes.
I want to say too, I do appreciate, like I said, when I went to the opening of the exhibition, the representation of how Bahamians look.
Thank you.
The representation of our lived realities. And I know he's not alive anymore, but to my understanding, right? One of my favorite artists to see his work, and I would repeatedly, whenever I get the chance to go at the National Art Gallery, is I would always go and look at, I think it's a piece by Jackson Burnside in the corner upstairs depicting John Canoe. I believe that's his piece, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe Brent Malone.
Could be
Yes.
Brett Malone.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jackson Burnside's work too, though. But it depicts a guy basically participating in Junkanoo in the vibrant colors of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the depiction of the person performing Junkanoo is front and center. Go ahead, Tate.
You mean the one with the costume? I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because oftentimes when Junkanoo is depicted, it depicts the vibrancy, the colors, and the instruments, but the people
Yeah.
are kind of like in the background.
Yeah.
But that one, the foreground is the people, and everything around him is the adornment of Junkanoo. And I don't know, that piece is just stunning to me.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation of it anyway. You know?
No, it's okay.
I'm not an art.
Yeah, and the
art
thing
critic.
is, too, a lot of Bahamians consume it too.
For
So
sure.
it's not like something where like, and I love the National Art Gallery for this, because you can go and you can view. If you didn't know, if you want to do something and it's a really nice outing, you can go to the National Art Gallery and you can
Touring
actually,
gallery or current.
you can just go and
Walk in?
walk in and look
It's
at
free.
the paintings. You're a Bahamian. It's free.
It's
Like, you can
yours.
just go inside
It's
and look.
yours.
And they have some beautiful
Yes,
exhibitions up. Is this just the season for exhibitions? Because there's a lot happening now.
I think there's just a lot happening now.
Okay, because I'm just like, every time I turn around, it's just like this. Shout out to Amanda Colson for always inviting me. But like, it's so many it's so much going on. It's so beautiful, and it really helps you to connect, right? To
Yeah.
connect with who you are.
Yeah,
Right. I think that's one of the purest forms of identity we have as Bahamian people through art.
Yeah, and I will say that most of the curators that I've worked with, and at the National Art Gallery, at Central Bank, and all of these other national institutions, they do curate for Bahamians first, and they consider the Bahamian audience first. And I think we just have like a long way of like marrying what we spoke about, like this like new wave of work that tells the truth with these spaces, and just continue to like contextualize all of the work that we're doing. So yeah.
It's just beautiful. I love it.
Thank
you so much, Judy. Thank you for being part of the show. We really enjoyed having you. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be right back. Stay tuned to the Eye Opener on Guardian Radio.
Mama say, mama say. The festival still going on. Central and Cross Chick Giant Tree. They say that's where the crowd and the beat. At the festival under the Chick Giant Tree. Say, gets the crowd, gets the crowd, boy. Gets the crowd, boy, crowd walking. Gets the crowd, boy. Gets the crowd, boy. Gets the crowd walking. I'm already going to boat. Grab the boat and take on the water. Let it go and just follow it right down to the big blue boat. Where it's not the right, I'm so nice for her.
Do you have uncontrollable debt? Are you ready to make that move to Fidelity for a stress-free future? These loans have a built-in savings plan that pays you unbeatable interest. Ask about our debt consolidation loans today. Call 356-7764.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
Always on the go? Missed a show? You can now listen to Guardian Radio talk shows anytime, anywhere on Spotify and YouTube by searching Guardian Radio 96.9 FM or by entering the name of your favorite show. You can also listen by logging on to GuardianTalkRadio.com and clicking on the podcast tab. Guardian Radio, continuing to provide you with fresh news and smart talk anywhere, anytime, all day.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
Everybody Wins Live is bringing you the ultimate giveaway, a brand new Cybertruck. For every $30 spent, you're in the drawing for the ultimate grand prize, a Cybertruck. Drawing live at the Vibes Cartel concert March 29th. You'll also be automatically entered to win tickets to see the world boss himself. 25 lucky winners every single week. Visit everybodywinslive.com to get into the game. See website for full terms and conditions. Must be.
My Solomon Smart Rewards is the ultimate way to save and earn rewards on all your grocery purchases. With Smart Rewards, you will enjoy exclusive discounts and offers redeemable for all your favorite products. Whether you're shopping in Nassau, Freeport, or Exuma, our loyalty program is designed to give you the best value and earn you rewards every time you shop. Sign up for My Solomon Smart Rewards today and start saving and earning big.
For fast, reliable, and impactful printing services, look no further. Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life. We stand by our quality products that is second to none. Our affordable pricing and friendly, efficient staff makes Printmasters the ultimate choice for all your printing needs. We can deliver any type of printing services, from banners to booklets to business cards. You name it, we can print it.
Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
And welcome back to the Eye Opener, Member the Skull of Boat. This is your weekly dose of Gin and Sarah C. Joining me in studio, I'm your host, Don. Joining me in studio is Crystal. And on the wonders of Zoom is Tate. Tate, still there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Yeah. So we've been playing, if all our listeners have been paying attention, we've been playing Catch the Crab all day. To play us in and out, because we are paying tribute to Elon Moxley, aka the Crab Man. He's passed away, so condolences to his family and the country, people in the art space, because he was an amazing song that everybody knows.
I have a shameless confession to make. When I was younger, I did not like Bahamian music.
Oh.
As I get older, and I go to, because Bahamian parties always involve alcohol and music.
Yeah. Then your palate is refined.
My palate is now like, I really just like to hear Bahamian music.
Oh my God.
And if I have enough libations, I too will dance
Oh,
to
wow.
Bahamian music. But
no, Bahamian music, I think for me, it wasn't something I ever disliked, but it's just like, for me, rap. I don't really listen to rap, right?
You don't like the rugga music?
No. But sometimes I'm in the mood to listen to it. And so I go ahead and listen to it. But I'm like, I'm a K-pop girly.
Oh, they're not like us. Well, anyway, hopefully things. But yeah, condolences to the family. But you should definitely check out some Elon Moxley's music. I'm sure you know what? It's one of those things we've heard so much of it, you're not even sure who. But you know,
it has to
most
be a
of his music.
handful.
Yes.
Yeah, but like there's a handful of Bahamian singers who you'd be like, okay, that's either this one or this one. But with the hint for that one was that he was talking about Catch the Crab. Andros is like the crab capital, so he was Andros the Crab Man.
What saddens me is so many aspects of the Bahamas are just kind of like dead. In that, I don't know if you remember when we did this whole exercise where we covered all of the flags of the various islands of the Bahamas. Most people don't even know that each island has a coat of arms.
Yeah,
right? Like
coat of arms.
in the first place, and most of them actually have flags.
Yeah.
Historically,
I'm not that familiar with the flags, but I do.
They're
know
both.
that I do know.
Not every island is predominantly islands that historically inhabited. But yeah, also just to throw out, I discovered recently that the 2022 census data, a more comprehensive report, it's the first big chunk of the report, it's about 100 and something pages, dropped at the end of February. I had a chance to take a glean through it. I strongly recommend that you take a look at it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have life expectancy information, but has a lot of info that is extraordinarily relevant as which islands have growing populations. A lot of family islands that have seen population increases. The island with the greatest percentage of increase is, guess which island? You're going to get it wrong. No! I think Eleuthera is actually third. Try again, Tate.
What do you mean with population?
Yes, the greatest percentage of population. Well, aside from New Providence. Let's not.
Okay,
actually, New Providence isn't actually first either.
And New Providence should be first now after Dorian.
Percentage.
I think
No.
it's still New Providence because New Providence did not have.
That's
the
your
most
guess?
people.
Your guess is New Providence?
I know, but what I'm telling you is that in the past, New Providence did not have the most.
That's
people.
fine. We had a. What's your guess?
Grand Bahama.
All right, final answer?
Abaco.
Great. Final answer. Great.
Eleuthera.
It is the Berry Islands.
Oh my gosh.
I did not expect that either.
That's random.
I was like,
Yeah.
what? They're the highest percentage growth. They don't actually have the highest growth. New Providence is the highest growth.
Yeah. But are they people traveling for work? Because there's a lot of tourist things happening in the
No,
Berry
those
Islands.
are
so-
people buying land and building homes and moving there.
Oh, so are they Bahamians?
No. I'm sure there are Bahamians who are, but there's a lot of people moving. Same with
Yeah, but
Eleuthera.
Eleuthera, yeah.
Eleuthera as
Yeah,
well.
just gonna tell you.
I'm not against that.
Abaco.
I'm actually in favor.
Abaco is a real hot spot.
I'll say this. I'm actually in favor of immigration.
Yes.
It should not be unfettered immigration into your country.
Yeah,
at all.
and that's from the low end and the high end. That's from people coming from lower income nations and higher income nations. If I'm just being very general and what do you call it? Diplomatic when I say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I understand. Fine, fair.
So it's
fair.
not just, and I think that there needs to be a balance.
Well, there should also be an economic policy. So this week, I got to talk about this. Is there some reform on the horizon? Now, whether or not it'll mean anything, I don't know. You tell me.
Somebody texted in.
I'm going to read that right in a second. So we have if you've been paying attention this week, Ryan Pinder, as you can see, anyway, Ryan Pinder with the Financial Transactions Reporting Act to be amended. I'm going to read just a part of it. Attorney General Ryan Pinder, this is in The Guardian, written by Yuri Camp, says, Attorney General Ryan Pinder said yesterday, this was earlier this week, at the Securities Commission of the Bahamas International Priorities and Initiatives 2025 conference that there will be amendments to the Financial Transactions Reporting Act. The Bahamas is preparing for the 5th round of the mutual evaluation of the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, or FATF, with legislative amendments and regulatory changes planned, which is expected to be completed by the summer. Pinder also covered the implementation of a new digital platform for company registrations. So hopefully that gets rid of the garbage system that we have now. It's supposed to be addressing historical data issues on the launch of a subscription program to service providers. I don't know what that means, but we'll see. The Bahamas is exploring opportunities to attract digital assets companies, as we've been doing for a while, and a family offices of these institutions, with initiatives to streamline the immigration process. Additionally, Pinder touched on the impact of climate change and the potential for environmental taxation to fund the lost funds. Now, I am very curious about that because how is that going to work with tourism? And I'll read one last part of it. It says there's also another revision for those who are in the corporate services side and the changes they're working through with respect to normal shareholders, directors. Pinder said what we're requesting is that you have to indicate on the register that you're acting as a nominee. So there's this whole thing about registration and tracking data of who is what. The immigration process, I presume, is purely for the purposes of the financial services. I don't know what that necessarily means because I need to see the act to come to any judgment about these things. I need to have side by side to see it. I don't expect this to be any groundbreaking changes. But one of the things that did stick out to me was this still push with these digital asset companies in the first place. And it's like looking at what's been happening in the market for the last 2 weeks, for those who don't know. I think the U.S. stock market has wiped out $1.5 trillion, regained $1 trillion, and then lost another $1 trillion. I'm dead serious.
And maybe they'll regain it again.
It is
it's like bobbing.
So bad that, and this isn't precipitated purely by this, but partially, that the New York Stock Exchanges and S&P is supposed to allow 24-hour trading, because what ends up happening is you have a bad Friday and you just lose $1 trillion, and then Monday comes and it's a bloodbath because people are like been using the weekend to speculate, to be like, what's going to happen with this, following the news frantically, and then something the president says or whatever happens, and it's a bull market right now. It's a garbage market, but we'll see what happens with that. I don't foresee anything major happening. I hope at some point this country can get out of the situation where people come to the Bahamas to do business, but incorporate the companies in Delaware, simply because the Bahamas doesn't have bankruptcy laws, and the corporate protections offered in Delaware are greater than that offered in the Bahamas. It becomes this issue of, if we were litigating these things, Tate, in the Privy Council, I would feel better than the fact that an entirely separate country that we have no historical legal ties with is litigating Bahamian issues. Like the Saucus Marillion case with China Construction of America is entirely taking place in Delaware, in New York, or wherever. But it's like, how is that? How does a government just see that and then say, "Oh, I don't really care"? You would think by now. Go ahead, Tate.
No, I'm laughing at that voicing me, but I agree. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just say you don't have a problem with that? Talk with sovereignty all the time, and this is just how business is. It just is what it is. Move on. Anyway, I'll read this text. This person says, like, you can text us at 422-4796. That's 422-4796. We're almost out of time, actually. Show's almost over. It says, I think most of us don't like Bahamian music when we were younger. Now that I'm older, I seek it out when I go out.
Yes. The thing is with Bahamian music, and if
the rum tastes different,
and if you mean like traditional Caribbean beat Bahamian music, like rake and scrape, calypso, gumbe, and the rest, then there's not like a lot of, and I mean like to scale, like how you'll go and hear like a lot of American music, and they have new tracks out all the time. Bahamian music doesn't seem to come out as often, and so songs, like if you turn on the radio to the Bahamian station
20 years ago too,
you would hear they're like really really old.
I also use Bahamian Music Patrol.
So you know them, so so sometimes it may seem like a little repetitive. So I see
it's fireball. Like you ever stomped the roads when you was really feeling that, like that you had that Bahama Mama. That rum and coke. Chris, Tate, you know what I'm talking about. Tate yourself 2 bears. Tate, you feel that boy when you stomp that road. All your leg and things vibrate.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I've actually been doing? I
like to listen to Bahamian music when I'm on the road, like driving down the highway. It just hits different, especially like on a nice hot day with the windows up and AC on.
Or you at a party and they playing Stagger Lee.
Oh yeah.
I have never seen so many Bahamians come in unison to dance. Of course, everybody was enjoying the wonders of libations.
It's Bahamian music, but it's not a Bahamian song.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So a lot of Bahamian songs are just Bahamian versions of, like how you hear, like, I heard like somebody do like a Bahamian version of All of Me.
But she had the biggest box in the early episode.
It was very different.
Take the size of it. Who could ask some more?
Dawn, please. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Dawn.
I would shout out here Eddie Minnis.
Oh yeah.
Some of the songs are very good. I've been listening to them while I've been in Boston.
Oh.
I've been listening to the old versions as well as the updated versions that came out under the Real Thing from Shakespeare in Paradise 2018.
Oh, nice. Nice.
And then also like, what's his name now? The Obama.
Oh.
So yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Bahamian music while I've been here as well.
You know what? It always blew my mind that Tony McKay was far more popular outside of this country than in it. Yes, he was popular within the Bahamas, but it amazed me an entire generation of that blows my mind.
All right, so I have 2 announcements to make before we end the show.
Go ahead.
So Shakespeare in not Shakespeare in Paradise, but it's on the Shakespeare in Paradise page. There's a play happening at the Dundas from March 27th to 29th and April 3rd to 5th. And March 30th and April 6th. This is called Witness for the Prosecution. It's directed by Nicolette Bethel, written by Agatha Christie. Tickets are, well, I don't know if I can say how much tickets cost. But yeah, so go out, see a play. Tickets are on sale. They have a QR code that you could scan if you go on Shakespeare in Paradise on Instagram. And it's just Shakespeare in Paradise. Make sure you're spelling it correctly. And that's going on right now. And also, for Brief, the Bahamas Reef Environment Educational Foundation. The show comes on today at 2 p.m., but Brief is doing a Young Reporters for the Environment competition, national competition. So if you want to learn more about that, you can hop over to Facebook or Instagram, go to Brief, BREEF 242 to find out how you can participate in that national competition if you're between the ages of 11 and 25 years old.
All right. Well, any final words, guys? We're almost out of time.
Go to an art gallery, please. There's so many great exhibitions happening now and some upcoming too. So please keep your eyes open for those. Visit the National Art Gallery.
Also, this is International Scholarship Day at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If you didn't know, it starts at 11 to 1. Supposed to showcase scholarships from all around the world, whether you're undergrad from high school trying to pursue a degree, you have your undergrad degree, you want to go further, or you want to get a PhD. So just go to the Goodman's Bay Corporate Center, 11 a.m. Goodman's Bay, Cascable Beach. Big things. Say any final words?
I'll be home in the summer.
Yay!
So it's good to see you all. And so I'll be back shortly enough. Yeah.
When are you graduating, Tate?
I graduate in roughly about a month and 11 days, I think it is.
Oh! Are you trying to get permanent head damage?
Yes, I got my offer letter this week.
Good.
So that's what I've been very stressful about. It's really concerned about these past few weeks, because of funding cuts, but everything got straight. So
good.
Oh, look at God.
Yeah.
Big thanks, Tate.
Yes.
I guess the only thing I have to say is it's gonna be great. Anyway, many hearts build a home, many hearts build a school, but it takes many engaged Bahamians like me and you to build a better Bahamas. Be good, Bahamas.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on Guardian